Ryan Grimm, reporter and founder of Dropsite News, is throwing down with CNN's Jake Tapper. This is all taking place on X, so no one's throwing hands, but they are throwing down. So, Cenk, before we get to the details, your 2 cents?
Yeah, no, I think that this was a mask off moment for Jake Tapper because I actually didn't know he was this extreme. I know Dana Bash is, but I didn't know Jake Tapper was this bad. So we'll show you that. And then later in the story is a hilarious list of influential figures in media. Who's on the list and who's not on the list is so funny.
Hilarious, yeah. So this all began earlier this month, actually, when writer and former IDF staff sergeant Eitan Fischberger, Fishburger does not sound delicious, I'll just put it that way, posted the following: birds of a feather. In a fitting twist, the CEO of the Tucker Carlson network, Neil Patel, is sitting right next to Nika Soon Xiong, the publisher of Dropsite News, the anti-American terrorist mouthpiece funded by the Soros family. Just delicious irony at the Doha Forum. Now, Dropsite News does a lot of reporting that Israel and Israel's supporters do not like, including looking at the tranche of documents and emails that have been released by the House Oversight Committee to see what ties, if any, Epstein had with the government of Israel. And it turns out quite a lot of ties, quite a lot of ties. I'm sure they don't like that. So they're referring to Dropsite News as anti-American and a terrorist mouthpiece. Okay. They also recognize the humanity of Palestinian civilians, and we all know that Israel's supporters absolutely loathe that. Now, the Doha Forum was a large conference that took place in Qatar that was hosted by a number of big names, including Tucker Carlson himself. That hosted a number of big names like Tucker Carlson. And Dropsite News mostly reports on the Middle East, specifically the genocide in Gaza. But the outlet also covers other topics as well, Jeffrey Epstein's emails and all of that. And for the Soros claim, Open Society Foundation, a philanthropic organization founded by Soros, did give Dropsite News $250,000 as a grant back in 2024. I don't love that, I'm just gonna be honest, but as long as Dropsite News is doing the type of reporting they've been doing, I will allow it. Am I not merciful? Am I not merciful? Jake Tapper saw Eitan Fischberger's post on X and quote tweeted it with this image. Let's take a look. Basically indicating that he agrees with it. Ryan Grimm responded with, "You're sharing a post from a former IDF soldier calling us anti-American. What is anti-American about our reporting? If you want to call us anti-American, fine. You're American and I'll hear that from you. I absolutely won't hear it from a foreign propagandist." And Ryan Grimm is like probably the most mild-mannered individual I've ever met in my entire life, and I mean that. So for him to get sassy like that, I think it takes a lot, and I love to see it. I wish he got even sassier, but what do you think, Jake?
Yeah, so anti-American terrorist mouthpiece for an American reporter who's doing terrific reporting about Jeffrey Epstein, Israel, but many other countries, Russia, Mongolia, etc., and the connections that Epstein had for all these. So if Jake Tapper had reporting that showed that Dropsite News was wrong, that would be very interesting, and I'd definitely read it. But he doesn't say anything about their reporting. He basically just called them terrorists. So that says to me, no, he's way more of a zealot than I realized. That's the kind of thing Mark Levin would say, Laura Loomer would say. So that's unbelievable, right? And look, there's two guys in my experience over the last 20 years who drive traditional media reporters crazy, and that's Ryan Grimm and David Sirota, because their reporting is unassailable. They're terrific reporters, and they keep reporting on the donor class and how they affect the politicians, Democrats and Republicans. So Sirota used to be the most hated because he did the best investigative reporting, I would argue, in the country. Now, Ryan, congratulations, you've taken the lead, because Ryan is now not only doing like groundbreaking reporting telling us who Jeffrey Epstein was working with, not necessarily for, but with. And so when you touch the Israeli third rail, then you get all the propagandists, which apparently includes Jake Tapper, saying that's it. I'm not going to even engage in the facts. I don't care about facts. All I care about is protecting my beloved Israel. So that's not journalism at all. It's a mask off moment. And then the other fascinating thing about it, Anna, is there's all these anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about how Soros controls the country, right? And Jake Tapper feeds into that. And this goes to prove what we've been saying all along. For the folks who are saying that the genocide is wrong, it's not about Jewish people at all. In fact, George Soros is against the genocide. But for the pro-Israel side, they hide behind Jewish Americans, but they actually don't care about Jewish Americans. They care about protecting Israel. So they're Tapper and this IDF guy are willing to throw a Jewish American under the bus and feed into those conspiracy theories, but because he's against Israel's actions. So there again, they prioritize Israel over Jewish Americans.
So real quick, let's talk a little bit about Mediaite's list of influential people in media, which, let me just be clear about this. I do not care about being included in any list. I don't look for prizes or rewards for simply doing my job. But with that in mind, and by the way, I think we're pretty influential given how much we've been targeted by certain groups to basically silence us when it comes to the genocide in Gaza. But Mediaite put out its list and well, some figures who did not make it. Let's start with that. Myself, Cenk, Asmongold, Candace Owens, Tim Dillon, Patrick Bet-David, Brian Tyler Cohen, and Hassan Piker. Who did make it on the list? Well, you have CNBC's Joe Kernan, Harris Faulkner, Lawrence O'Donnell. Lawrence O'Donnell was number. Is he still doing a show?
Apparently.
Wow. So he was at number 54. Tucker Carlson is included in the list, and I think he should be in the list. I mean, obviously, he's been incredibly influential. He sits at number 46, followed by Don Lemon at 45, and Tony Dokupil at 44. You have Maria Bartiromo at number 39. Mark Levin or Levine at number 37. Pierce Morgan at 28, I think well deserved. But just below The View at number 27. Barry Weiss at 16. By the way, the ratings on the Erica Kirk interview, total disaster, utter debacle, but she's very influential, number 16. Joe Rogan is at number 15 and was right behind Bill Maher at number 14. And the top three were Megyn Kelly, Joe Scarborough, plus Mika Brzezinski, and the hosts of The Five.
Yeah, so I love this list because I think it's hilarious, and I think that it shows how little Mediaite knows about current day media. But to be fair to them, they're just as clueless as the rest of traditional media. So I'll tell you, Barry Weiss definitely belongs on the list. She just took over CBS, so that's a very powerful position. So I don't begrudge that. I think the host of The Five that's the most popular show on cable news. That makes sense. Megyn Kelly's doing great. That makes sense. So it's not like there's nobody on this list that makes sense.
Right.
But they betray themselves when they do hilarious things like putting Tucker Carlson at 46. There's no list where Tucker Carlson should be lower than 10, I think lower than 5. Why? Because I like Tucker Carlson and I think he's right about everything? No, I'm just as an honest take on who is the most influential. I mean, on Israel alone, Tucker Carlson has gotten almost the entire right wing to flip and be against Israel. But Mediaite is very pro-Israel.
Yeah.
So that's probably why they're like, no. He's not influential. We hate him. They might have written about, I don't know if they got up to 100 yet, but at least dozens of articles about how Tucker Carlson's an anti-Semite and it's unacceptable to talk to him and he should be canceled. This is kind of the list they wish was true.
Yeah.
But it's not at all true.
Yeah.
So, and they think Mark Levin is more influential than Tucker Carlson. Well, sorry guys, but that's basically saying you know nothing about modern media, nothing. You could interview do any poll of MAGA, America First, Trump voters, etc., and you'll see how preposterously wrong you are.
So, in fact, I think Tucker Carlson is the most influential conservative in media. I genuinely do. And I think Megyn Kelly, yes, is also influential, but to put her ahead of Tucker, I think is a stretch. And if he wasn't influential, then what about the endless campaigns to cancel him? Why would you care about canceling someone who's not that influential, right? I mean, now he's included in the list, so there's a concession there that he is influential. But one other thing I'll say about him, Cenk, and I think it's important to share this with the audience because I want you guys to know what my personal values are and what I prioritize. I actually do like Tucker Carlson, and I have no shame in saying that. And that's with the acknowledgement that he has views that I vehemently disagree with, including his views on gay people and his views on abortion. However, to me, what has transpired in Gaza has been clarifying for me in being able to suss out who the good people are and who the evil people are. And if you are willing to call out the atrocities that have been committed by the Israelis in Gaza and the West Bank, by the way, and if you're willing to speak out against the lies that are being told to us by our own government to drag us into wars that we should not be involved in, you're someone I'm willing to work with. Okay, because to me, that's a litmus test, especially your views on Gaza. That's a litmus test for me personally. I know others differ. It is what it is. So
yeah. So last thing is the people who didn't make the list. If you don't have Tim Dillon on the list, it's not a real list. That's absurd, right? Patrick Bet-David, gigantic. Brian Tyler Cohen is top 10 nonstop in online media. Why is he not on the list? This is such a weird list. So for us guys, I've been on this list many times, which now apparently meant nothing. So I'm sorry I ever bragged about it. But look, I get it. They don't like us, and they've implied that we're Jew haters and stuff. Oh, boo! You guys won't bow down to Israel. You won't make the list. It's hilarious. It's almost like a mark of shame to make this list. And Hassan, no matter what you think of Hassan, is there someone that is more influential among 18 to 34-year-olds in this country? I mean, you make a mockery of any list if you don't put them on it. So this whole thing, Candace Owens is not influential? Then why do you guys talk about her 24/7? You won't shut up about her. So this is great, guys, because this gives you an insight into how people in traditional media think. They're totally clueless and have no idea what's going on in the media ecosystem and the political ecosystem in this country.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.